Welcome to the 100th episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, right here on the BMG Network. Adrienne, as the man behind the BMG Network, I want to say congratulations on 100 episodes of the Adrienne Ross Show. You have been faithful, and it has been an absolute pleasure and honor working with you. I am so thankful that you said yes to doing this and making your voice heard in this way, because it is absolutely essential and needed in today's society. I am so excited to see where God takes the Adrienne Ross Show. So again, congratulations. And here is a message to Adrienne from a few others.
Hey Adrienne, it's Marie with African American Conservatives, congratulating you on your 100th episode. You have done so much for the conservative space, and so it is my joy to celebrate this milestone with you, and I look forward to 100 more. Congratulations once again from your friends here at African American Conservatives.
Congratulations, Adrienne Ross, on your 100th episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. I am so proud of you, and I cannot wait to see the doors that God opens for you. Amen.
Congratulations, Adrienne, on your 100th episode of your podcast. I am so happy for you. I celebrate you. You bring truth, godly wisdom, and wit to your content. And I just love to hear your engagement with your guest and just your fiery passion for what you do and for the issues of today. Thank you for that. And here's to another 100 episodes. Love you. Bye.
Hey, congratulations, Adrienne, on the Adrienne Ross Show, 100 episodes. That is awesome. Congratulations. And I just pray that it continues to multiply and you have more and more great shows.
Yes, we are so excited for you. We are so proud of you that you have continued and persevered to bring the truth in and through the Adrienne Ross Show, uncompromised and full of enjoyment and excitement. So we look forward to the next 100. God bless you.
God bless.
Hello and welcome to the 100th episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. In case you can't tell, I am excited. 100 episodes. I made it to 100 episodes and I'm really, really excited about it. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening or for watching. Thank you for every encouraging word. Thank you for every rating, every review. Thank you for your prayers and for your support. It means absolutely so much. I believe that I have a mandate to speak. I believe the Adrienne Ross Show is not just something in my mind or in the mind of the BMG Network, but I believe it's something on the heart of God, on the mind of God that he put in my heart. And that's why I do this. That is why I do this. 100 episodes. I'm extremely excited about that. And I'm very, very grateful to the BMG Network team. And that's what this episode is about. This is the BMG Network reunion. And some members of the BMG Network will be joining us for this amazing reunion and celebration. We've got a lot to talk about. You get to meet them. You get to hear our thoughts, to hear our hearts, to know what makes us tick. And we're going to get into a lot of things going on in the culture today. All right. So thank you for tuning into this 100th episode. All right. So now let's meet the BMG Network team. Here we go. Well, welcome guys and gal to the 100th episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. 100 episodes. Yes, I'm so excited about that I made it this far, and I was thinking about it, guys. I was thinking that sometimes you start something and you don't see it all the way through. So that I made 100 episodes Means a lot to me, and I'm so excited that I have with me on this episode the BMG team. You guys hear me all the time, every episode. I'm like, make sure you go to the BMG Network, the BMGnetwork.com. We are engaging, enlightening, informative, and yes, entertaining. But you've never had a chance to meet the BMG team, and what a great time to do that on the 100th episode. All right. So I applaud you guys for the work that you do. And I'm excited that people are going to have an opportunity to learn about who you are and what you do on the BMG Network. So I'm going to open this up to start, and I'm going to have the team introduce themselves, tell us who they are, tell us what they do, and their relationship to the BMG Network. How does that all work? So who wants to be the first one to jump in?
I say the guy that the BMG Network is named after.
Me.
All right. All right.
All right. So yeah, my name is Ken Burns, not the director, although I wish I was related. I'd ask for a little moolah. But so I am Ken. I work from home, but my passion, of course, working in radio with actually Ted. Back in the day, I was there from 2012 to 2019 when they kind of closed the doors there. I think it was something like that.
Yeah. And
had the privilege of working with some great people, like I said, including Ted and Maddie there when she showed up at the studio too, which was fantastic. And I work from home, but the BMG Network, I don't know if you want me to go over that now, but essentially I just kind of just say that, yeah, we started this, this is a few years ago. And I'm so thankful that everyone here has kind of come along and saw somewhat of the vision. It's constantly changing a little bit, getting a bit more, broader or narrow, depending on how we're looking at it. But we'll
save some of that. We'll save some of that, your vision, in a moment, because I want to make sure I hear at length.
Yes.
The vision for the BMG Network. All right, who's next?
Madeline, you go for
Okay.
ladies first.
All right. I'm Madeline Flynn. I am a second year, or just finishing up my second year at the University at Albany. I'm a human bio major and an aspiring physician assistant for internal medicine. And I just submitted my very first med school application today.
Wow.
So that's really exciting.
Super exciting.
And I'm also an artist on the side. I sell art. I take commissions. They're open until school starts. And I play piano. But I got first introduced to the BMG Network through my dad because we were talking about starting something. And then Ken was saying he wanted to get a platform up and going. So that actually provided me with the opportunity to start my own podcast. And now it's a great outlet. And I teach people about what I learned in school. I give people tips on politics, how to learn. I just recently did one on how to hold a conversation and all the art that they need. So it's been really great.
I should tune into that one. Yeah.
That's great, man.
And she's on the dean's list too, by the way. Her grades are good. She's just extremely talented. I guess it's true to say that talent skips a generation. Anyway,
No.
All right. I'm Ted Flint, Madeline's dad, and the father of 3 other children. And I work for the New York State Assembly as a producer in the radio TV department. I interview the Republican members of the Assembly, all 49 of them, I think, or 48. We do their radio and TV shows, and we send the shows out to their individual districts. And I've been doing that for going on 20 years. This October will be my 20th year, and I'm eyeing retirement real soon from the state. My first love is radio. And I've been in radio, as Ken mentioned, a few years there at the station we were at together. But I've been in radio since 1981 or 82. I can't remember. It's been too far back. But 35 years, 40 years.
Yeah.
Who's counting?
Wow. Yeah. And now you are a part of the BMG Network.
BMG Network, yes.
The BMG Network. And so that brings me back to you, Kenneth. Kenneth Burns, because first of all, podcasting is like the thing right now. And so before we even get into your vision to make you start it and where you want to go with it, why is podcasting taking off? And anybody can jump in on this because it is taking off.
Sure.
What is going on that's causing this this platform to absolutely blow up right now?
I have a few ideas, but actually, I want to hear from Maddie. I want to hear somebody that's her age group, because you guys have really kind of taken a hold of podcasts big time, I'd say, and even the
Sure.
vlogs and the video stuff too. So what's your take?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a matter of accessibility because we always have an iPhone or some kind of a smartphone in our hands, some kind of device. But in our generation where everything is digital and even school when it went fully remote, everything just wound up like right in our fingertips. So I think it's a matter of being able to just look for something right on your phone and like have it in your earbuds and have it close by to you instead of going over and turning on like a physical radio. I don't think any of my friends own a radio. I don't own a physical radio. But we were on our phones all the time. So because everything is just right in our hands, to have podcasts there too makes them extremely accessible. And all of my friends listen to podcasts. They listen to mine. We send them to each other, and they're on a lot of apps like Apple Music, Spotify. We all have those installed. And it's just kind of where all the other stuff that we do every day is already. So we have YouTube, we have our schoolwork. I have for college a couple of apps. One is called iClicker, but that's on my phone right next to my Apple Music. So everything's just right there.
Yeah.
So we don't look outside of that anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Hey, it's a shame that, as Madeline was saying, that very few people under the age of 40, I think, have radios or even listen to radio. And people with whom I work are 45 and 50. They don't have radios in their houses.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big reasons why podcasting has taken off. And the other reason, I think locally, I can speak only for upstate New York, the radio in this region is just dead. I mean, there's nothing to listen to, for me to listen to. I mean, other people younger maybe have different musical tastes, will find a station they like, but I just can't. I keep flipping the dial and there's just nothing for me.
Yeah.
And and I'm of a certain age. I mean, I think we got all the generations covered here, 20, 40, 60. And so, I mean, it kind of goes across the generations.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, that brings me back to you, Kenny, because at some point you thought, I'm going to start the BMG Network. I'm going to get people on to podcasts, etc. And that's why I'm here. So I want to say that right now that this is 100 episodes, but it's not 100 episodes because Adrienne put something together. I wouldn't be here without you, without your invitation and without your acceptance. And I mean, you're editing everything. You're the man. That's why I said we can't do this 100th episode without the man, and you're the man. And so thank you so much, because I do believe this is an important platform. And I believe it's becoming more and more important as we see what's going on with Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and all this stuff. We can see that this platform, some people are like, you know what, bump that. I'm going to do my own thing. And podcasting is one of those major avenues that people are driving down, right? So you're the mastermind behind the BMG Network. Tell us how you crafted that idea and also where you plan to take it.
Sure. So essentially, it was back in radio when we would have that. And in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, this would be, how long is this going to last? Like the radio aspect of it, because, there was telltale signs that things were changing, not just with us, but in radio in general. And like they mentioned too, is the accessibility. So getting with these times as well. So essentially, when you look at like what Maddie was saying, people are like, same thing. People give me a CD or something like that. I'm like, where am I going to play this? I have a USB port in my car. I don't have a CD player. And then of course, the accessibility being, I can change it at any time. I'm done with this guy. I listened for half an hour. That was good enough. I can go to the next one. So I just wanted to get people want something quick. They want to just get a nugget, or maybe they want to listen to the whole show because they love, you as the host, but they want to get the nuggets. They want to just get something going. So I knew that people like Ted, people like Maddie, people like yourself, who do have a voice, who have a passion to not only understand information and retain it, but to also, go out and speak it. That is the people that I'm always thinking about. I'm like, well, that means that they'd have to have a platform. Well, I wasn't really thinking that much yet. And I wish Mike was here at the time, because me and Mike, of course, we came up with the Ken and Mike show, but that wasn't all me. That was actually, I got really inspired. Like I was saying with Ted at radio, he really got me more into politics and to thinking more. Cause I'm like, you can get too wrapped up because you can get sucked in. So the reality is we have to keep our eyes focused on Jesus Christ, period. If we're not, we will get sucked into this thing, and the next thing you know, we're like those people on Facebook that are battling back and forth, and you get nowhere. But if we know what we're doing, and if we just be a voice, I think that makes a difference, because it's gonna plant a seed. So Mike had an idea that we would start a radio show called, we decided to call it the Ken and Mike Show. I don't know why my name went first, maybe because it just it flowed better, something like that. And we were like, well, we'll start getting people and guest speakers. Well, through networking and stuff, we were able to get, really great guests and stuff like that on. So we were doing that. So Mike was the one. I remember he called me. I was still working the radio at the time. He said, hey, he's like, I had a great idea and I thought of you instantly. I'm like, oh boy, what? And he's like, I had an idea that we would do a show outside of, like, just it'd be like our own thing, that we'd have people come on and people can call in. And I'm like, okay. And the call-in thing isn't that big of a thing anymore, at least in my opinion. I mean, we tried it, and it really didn't. People want to just type something on there, leave their opinion, and kind of walk away. And anyway, so we did it that way. But then we just started kind of like hosting with each other and doing that. And then that's when things started to cultivate for me. I was like, this is really fun and interesting. I was like, I wonder what happened though. Like we're doing this, but we can't just do this alone. Like we can't, you could, we could just do that. But I was like, but I really for me, I like to have people, I like to be surrounded by other people that have like-minded.
Yeah.
And that want to do something, because I don't know, there's strength in numbers, and there really is. And when you get people that, like, I feel like we all, obviously we love God, we love our country, and we want to see change. And some of us have children, of course, and we think to ourselves, like, and we have families, brothers, sisters, mothers, whatever. So we want to make sure that we do everything that we possibly can to spread truth. That being, of course, the truth comes from the gospel, but this is also our country, and it was founded on that. So for me, I know some people don't like to go there. There's a lot of people of faith that don't like to go political, but I think it's important. I think it's important though, because it's our society that we live in. This is where we live. And, I don't want to see my kids have to suffer these things. So we should be able to be a voice for those who maybe don't have that, they're not comfortable doing that. So we are. So that's kind of like where I started to think about that. And I was like, okay, got to have a name, of course. Of course, I had to have like started with an LLC, Burns Media Group. Then I was like, then through discussion, through it was with Malaysia actually and Mike, and we were like, yeah, okay, what about the BMG Network? And so we kind of looked at that, like, so it'd be Burns Media Group just for that purpose, but it was really the BMG network of people, hosts that come on and love God, but aren't afraid of just being real people and speaking how it is. And so that's kind of how it cultivated. And the vision really being is, again, sometimes, of course, when you start these things, you think, okay, we got to, in order to get somewhere, you got to have money and things like that. So that's always in the forefront. But I think God, it makes room for itself, I think. And I think God will provide those things for each one of us somehow, whether it's, I don't know how, but I'm so thankful though. I will say this. I'm so thankful to everyone that does this, including Mike and Malaysia. They do a lot of things in the background for me sometimes too. And we do it just because we love it, not because we're making anything really. All of you guys aren't, right? I wish I could say, man, I wish I could show everybody the tax forms here and show them how much you guys are making, but I ain't got nothing to show. But I know that we love this.
Yet, right? Yet.
Yeah, that's right.
And I believe my thing when I look at it is, as I was saying too, we were talking a little bit beforehand, as we just can continually just stay with it. Like, I think sometimes what happens is it's easy to quit when nothing's really happening, at least physically that we see. Yeah. But if we stay with it and remain faithful, I believe God's faithful. I believe He'll open doors that we just don't even know how to open.
Well, go ahead, Ted.
I agree. I think patience is one of the 7 virtues. We need to be patient and diligent and keep doing what we know to be true, because as Kenny mentioned, I think people are looking for truth, and that's what we try to deliver here. Absolutely. At the BMG Network. And just to your point, Kenny, about people of faith, many of them, and I know people as well who love God, but they don't want to get involved in politics. They don't think it's their place. It's too worldly. But I think that's why we're in the position we're in, because people of faith have turned the other, they've looked the other way. They've not gotten involved. Now's the time to speak out, especially for Christians, to speak out and speak the truth, because people are starved for it.
100%.
Yeah, you're reading my mind, actually, because I wanted to have that conversation with you guys, because there are those two mindsets. Some who say, well, Christians absolutely have to be involved. And then there are other people who say, no, that's not our place. Things are just going to unfold as they're supposed to, and we shouldn't have a place. And that 2 weeks ago, I did an episode with my pastor, Pastor Zach Strong, and we talked about the role of the church in culture and politics and culture. And when I say the church, we know the church is not the building. The church is made of people, and we go to the building, right? What's our role? Or should we just be sitting back and doing nothing? But I'm going to get into that, because I want to get your take shortly on a pastor and what he is actually doing to, I guess, use whatever platform God has given him. But I'm curious about what you think of his the methods that he uses. But we're going to get back to that. Kenny, where do you see this going?
Yeah, so for me, I'm always kind of toying, having some ideas in my mind. I really believe, as of right now, everybody's busy. Maddie's got a lot of great stuff going on. And still killing it with the podcast too. It's just incredible that you can do all the stuff that you do. I'm honestly, I'm in awe. I'm like, my gosh, you're a brilliant person. I wasn't that way. I was creative, but I wasn't diligent. I don't think I knew how to stick with things and really pursue something with my whole heart until people come around you and start that just speaks to your family, your dad and your mom. Instilling those things inside of you to really, when you're going to put your mind to something, don't quit, keep going. And you've done that, and everything that you do, you touch it multiplies essentially. And I think that's the thing. If we have people like yourself, like Ted, Adrienne, on this platform, and everybody's putting their hands to the plow, honestly, it's going to blossom. Yeah, it's got to. And I think the reality is, I think it really is just that one listener away of making it to where it explodes. And that means that all of a sudden, again, it's not about we can get into the aspects of how podcasting works, but the reality is that our platform is just us being together as a team. Of course, there's an actual the platform where everything, your RSS feeds and stuff flow from, and we can see all the analytics and things. But the reality is, though, as far as us as the BMG Network, the Pac-Man podcast, the Essentials, the Adrienne Ross Show, and when I get my butt in gear and I'm back on the Ken Burns Show, and we're doing these things. And of course, video is a big thing. I know for all of us, we have to.
Well, I'm going to stop you for 1 second, because I want to bring on video someone you were just talking about who's waiting to join the conversation.
Hey,
so I want to bring him into our conversation, and it's the Mike you've been talking about. But while Mike is coming on,
okay.
Speaking of video, as he's coming on video, I want to, if I may, Kenny, because I think you're absolutely right. We have to be consistent. We have to keep pushing, and we have to believe that our message is important enough that it's going to gain momentum, right?
Yes.
I want to ask Maddie, though, as the young one here, I want to ask you, Maddie, you are a college student. You are brilliant, as Kenny has pointed out, and I know your dad feels the same way, right? And you've got a lot going on, but you are a Christian conservative in New York.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're standing on principles. How do you do that? And how do you relate to other people who probably don't have, maybe your sphere has the same mindset, but you're in New York, in a college.
Right.
How do you do that?
So the main thing, and I've actually learned it this year, I feel like I went to a protest that was at UAlbany, and they were protesting abortion and like all this stuff was happening. But before I talk about that, I stand so firmly on my principles that I think I've become more mature in Christ. And that's really what gets me through the day. Because I hear people talking about stuff that's just terrible, so terrible. And I know it's wrong, but they won't understand. So instead of having conversations with them, I pray for them. I may not even know their names. I'll just be like, Lord, please touch this person, give them wisdom, give them understanding. But when people come to me, and sometimes they do, and they ask for advice, and I ask the Lord to make me a vessel for him so that they can learn the truth through me. And I try not to lose my temper with people, but it's very easy to do up here in New York.
Oh,
I have a very small circle of people who are as faithful to the Lord as I am, because I have some friends who are Christians, but I have some people who are very strong Christians. And then we are able to share like-minded stories with each other or whatever. But it's hard being at a progressive state university, though, because there's thousands of kids and there's only a few. There's a Turning Point USA club at UAlbany, and there's 7 kids in it that I've seen. But the fact that it's there, they're also like I am. They're standing firm. They know the truth, and they will not be swayed. But it's hard, though, being small in number.
Right. Wow. And you talk about New York. We all are familiar with New York. I'm not in New York now. Kenny's not in New York now. But we're native New Yorkers, right? So I think, Kenny, were you born in New York?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, you were in New York also,
yeah.
Right? So we're New Yorkers, even though we, a couple of us got away from that. But let me bring Michael in.
Mike,
I'm so glad you're able to join us on this 100th episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. And
congratulations.
Thank you. We were talking about you behind your back, but yeah, we knew that you were gonna slip in if you had an opportunity. So I'm glad you did. Let me throw you in here. I know you haven't heard the conversation, but I wanted everyone to just introduce themselves, who they are, what they do, and how they're connected to the BMG Network.
How are we connected? Well, how am I connected, Kenny?
still are, brother.
Well, it's great to see everybody. It's
So
great
good to see you. By the way, I will say this. You'd be blushing right now if you were on a little while ago because I was bragging on you.
I'm sorry.
I will I'll give you a hint of where you can go with this. Essentially, I let them know about the phone call when I was still working in radio that I got from you about starting the Ken and Mike show, which kind of started to cultivate, honestly, everything. So a lot of this was a seed planted by Mr. Mike Hansen as well. So
I remember that conversation. But no, Michael Hansen. I don't know what else to say about myself. Be as humble as possible here. I mean, I just know Kenny from the church, same church days, Adrienne, same place that I met you however many years ago. And I think Kenny and I share the same vein of a lot of the I think the disgust and the I don't know, the disdain that we have for what's going on in our culture, especially up here in New York State, which you all are familiar with. And then Kenny and I decided that we wanted to create a way that we could all talk about it without it being so divisive and violent, and bring everybody to like the same table and maybe have a conversation about it. And then Kenny took off and ran with it, and you guys joined in and ran with it, and then I fell away and did my own thing and never talked to any of y'all again.
That's why this is a reunion, Mike. That's why this is a reunion, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so important what we do. And I have to just bare my heart and say that sometimes I get frustrated because I hear people at times talk about how important it is not to just be tied into the mainstream media or the lamestream media or the fake news, and that, we're citizen journalists and, alternative media and all that. And yet, thank God for the people who are willing to support, but there are many people who speak that, but they don't give a shot to those of us who are putting in the hard work, the peons, as I say, who are in the trenches, who are fighting the fight, who are bringing truth, who have to deal with some of the slings and the arrows, like Maddie said in New York, or, we deal with that, and yet we're consistent, right? We're consistent. And I think that it's so important that we recognize, as people are trying to silence these voices, that people come alongside those of us in the trenches who are being a voice and support us as well. Am I alone in feeling that way?
No, not at all.
Well put.
Yeah, I feel like that's exactly what podcasting is, because as we were talking about earlier on the news, everybody's kind of following a script, and not many people can stray away from that, because if they do, they're going to wind up getting censored. A lot of information doesn't even make it to mainstream news and media. So people who are doing the podcast, because we're independent, we're free to really share our views and reach out to other people and also share their views if they're too shy to talk about it or whatever. But it gives everybody a chance to be heard and in an unbiased way.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think the other side doesn't want the truth to get out because, and that's evident. You mentioned Fox News. Look what's happened to Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on Twitter now, and I guess he got like 10 million hits on his first show. So people are, as somebody said, Lauren Boebert, who's I think South Dakota, or where's she from? She's a
Colorado, isn't she?
Is she Colorado? Yeah, she said that wherever Tucker Carlson goes, Americans will follow. And that's about this. Americans want what they know to be true, and Carlson delivers the truth, and so many people out there do. But as Madeline was saying, there's a lot of people are working from the same script in the major media. If you listen to one podcast on the national stage, you've heard them all. And Kenny and I have talked about this. I always like to listen to Michael Savage. He left radio. He retired. He's about 80 years old now, and he's got a podcast. I listened to it this past weekend, and he's still good. He's still relevant, and he's still got the fire. But he for whatever reason, he just had to drop out of radio. It just maybe he had enough of it. But anyway, I'm starting to drift.
Well, no. Well,
conversation's getting me amped up again. I want to start talking to people.
I know.
Yeah, see, this is what this reunion is going to do. It's going to relight that fire. And I know people got a lot of their hands in a lot of things and really busy, but what we do is important. And sometimes when I feel like, I'm going to give up, you hear from someone who's like, that encouraged me, or that fired me up, or that was the truth, or, and so it's so important. So even though I'm celebrating 100 episodes, I'm going to keep saying that because I'm really psyched about that. But even though I'm celebrating myself in a way, I'm celebrating you guys on the BMG Network. Why? Because Kenny had a vision. Lots of people have visions, but not a lot of people step out and do anything about it. But he had a vision because he was inspired by other people, as he said, and then he took off with it. And some of us caught the vision, and now we're going with it. And we have to, because what's going on in this country is off the hook.
That's right.
So I want to transition to that. Since we're together, let's just talk some news, politics, culture, and all that stuff. So here's my thing. What you guys, anybody can jump in. What's going on in the culture today, or politics, or whatever, that has you particularly fired up or concerned?
Where do we start? Is it
I
the
know.
holding back of unclassified documents that we have a right to see right now with Joe Biden, with the $5 million, the $10 million? I mean, and them indicting someone who's trying to challenge him all of a sudden with documents that he actually had a right to. I mean, we could start there. I mean, essentially, they are doing the FBI, who we're supposed to trust. But think about this. There was a time where we felt safe with our authority, and the authority being those who protect and serve us. Right. And there are some incredible people. There's always going to be a bad actor, a bad apple, period. And that's how we need to look at it. We can't just put a blanket statement on every single person, but the FBI as a whole. When we see Ted Cruz out there on grilling them big time recently, a lot of them are. Another one is Josh Hawley, who's always constantly on too. Yeah. I love that guy. These guys are really pushing it. Like, listen, I promised, my state, I promised these guys that I would, come up here and not shut up about this. So I want to see some changes happening. These guys are asking for things. They're asking for money, and our congressmen are going, why would we ever give that to you if you're not even telling us the truth in these areas? Like, why would I ever give you some money to write off these loans, essentially, for these students? And it's just like when you can't even provide documents. I mean, I've seen that. Like, nobody wants to provide any information. They'll say, oh, our team will reach out to you. Okay, is that going to be next month? I'll be happy to speak of that. I'll tell my team and they'll reach out to you. 3 months? Just like, and this is what you see all the time. They don't want to provide any information that we have a right to, as the American people. That's our, these people are the ones that not us. So we didn't elect a lot of these guys in there, but they're in there. The people elected them in there. so that we could see what we need to see. The FBI is super corrupt. I mean, you don't feel safe with them. You feel
That's
like
the
they're
word I
constantly-
was waiting for.
Well, you
Corruption.
feel like they're just literally. I'm like, are they watching? Are they on my computer right now? You know, are they listening to my phone calls?
I hope so.
Yeah, right.
I hope they are.
I hope so too, right?
That's right.
Right.
Bring it on.
But that's
Bring it
how
on.
it feels. It feels like that, and it's constantly like my son will often tell me, he's like, Dad, why don't you really get really back into it, man? If you do the videos, because he's like I said, he's really big into YouTubing and do all that kind of stuff. You could do this. I'm like, I know. In the back of my mind, I think this is my thoughts. Yes, of course, I'd be more than happy. But then I also go, I watch these people like President Trump and a lot of these guys. They don't just go like, oh, what they're doing now is right or wrong. They go, well, 45 years ago, like when you were a baby, like when you came out, you gave your mother a dirty look, so what was that about? And they'll find anything and somehow track you down and try to just.
So are you saying, and I'm going to be a little bit, push you a little bit here.
Yeah.
Are you saying then that you don't want to be engaged in the heat of the battle?
No, not at all. There's a part of me sometimes that goes, my gosh, I have to do this. But there's a little, but because of that fear I was saying earlier, we have to be able to press through it. It's like, okay, so what if? And you kind of work that out. You just go like, yeah, okay, so what if there was something? I mean, I'm a good guy. I mean, they're not going to find something, but you watch Kavanaugh. I mean, you see these people, what I mean? That kind of stuff where you're just like, but then you go, you know what though?
Yeah.
What do you do? It's worth it. It's completely worth it.
The question I asked you, I think a lot of people would say, no, I don't want to be, they always say, if you're a good guy, you don't want to be put through the ringer. This is why good people don't engage, because it's dirty, right?
Yes.
Okay, what else? What are some other things, somebody that really has you riled up?
Well, just to piggyback on what Ken was talking about, the way the media and the law enforcement agencies treat the two presidential candidates, the president, Joe Biden, and the ex-president. I mean, Donald Trump as president summarily can just declassify any document he chooses. And I think the case against him, this latest, is bogus, as were the two impeachments. He's probably going to be charged in Georgia at some point. And it's all bogus. It's all to keep him out of the White House, because he pulled the curtain back those 4 years on the deep state and what's going on there. And it is dirty. And Biden's a big part of it. He's been there a half a century. He is, as my wife said, it's like there's an iron fist behind everything he does. He knows a lot of people. I think he has dirt on a lot of these people. And I don't know if he's pulling the strings or who the guy behind the curtain is, whether it's Obama, whether it's Susan Rice or whoever it is. But I mean, the way the two men are treated by the media and certainly by law enforcement is just unbelievably, it's biased. I mean, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, should be held in contempt of Congress. He's got to come up with some material that he's refused to come up with. I mean, it's just unconscionable what he's doing to President Trump. And I think he's got to be called on the carpet. And it's sad, because with Kenny, I agree. I mean, I have respect for law enforcement. I have a sister-in-law who I think is retired from the FBI. I had an uncle who was a homicide detective in Albany for 47 years. So I have a law enforcement, part of my family comes from a law enforcement background. But I don't have any respect at all for today's FBI, because they view, and the DOJ views, people like us, people who come to school board meetings to speak out, concerned parents, pro-life marchers, as domestic terrorists. That's how they view us.
Yeah,
we're the enemy. They don't go after the real enemies. They go after the American people who are patriots and Christians.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's heating up more and more. As Donald Trump has said, they're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just in the way. I believe him. Mike, what's got you riled up?
I come at it from maybe a slightly different perspective. I mean, listen, I mean, I've even made posts about it in the past. I fell off the Trump train a long time ago. And not so much because I hate Donald Trump. I think he was probably the best president besides Reagan in my lifetime. But I come at it from the angle, let just for a second, let's entertain the fact that everything that the media is saying about Donald Trump is true, which it's not, but let's entertain that for a second. I just wish what gets me the most riled up is the bias. It's not so much who Donald Trump is. I really don't care. I mean, I think if I met the guy, I probably wouldn't like him, if I'm being honest. But he's the best thing for the country. But that being said, I wish the energy that was directed towards bringing this man down and all the stuff that they say they have on him and his background was the same energy they would use towards Biden, that we know that he has of the skeletons hanging in his closet. So I don't care if it's Biden did something wrong, and I don't care if it's Trump did something wrong. I mean, I'm not effectively articulating this the right way, but I just wish that the same energy that was for the left taking down the right, that the right would use to take down the left. And I find it disgusting. I find it's almost a bought and paid for system. So no matter what you have, and no matter, you can have as much concrete evidence as you want, unless it's red, and unless it has an elephant on it, and it's the saying goes, Democrats don't go to jail. So Democrats don't get tried. So I just wish it was the same. I wish the same energy, the scales of justice, and the balanced media coverage was the same on both sides of it. That's what gets me riled up. I don't care who's making the accusations. I just wish it was balanced.
Yeah. And it's not, as you said. So as Christians, and I asked a similar question of my pastor 2 weeks ago when he was on. A lot of times Christians are feeling like, man, can we win a battle? Like, loss after loss after loss sometimes, and it's so frustrating, and it's overwhelming. So I got to ask, and you may not have the answer, what is the answer? What do we do to turn the ship around? And I said ship. Want to make sure I say that better. What do we do? Of course, the other is, it does fit. What do we do to turn around? So you guys mentioned, the political stuff, and I'm sure you're concerned also about the stuff in the culture. Everyone here, except for Maddie and myself, everyone is a parent, except for the two of us, right? So you've got to be concerned about what's going on with children today. You send them to schools. Okay. And whether it's CRT, to me, that's a mild thing compared to what they're doing to kids in school now, sexualizing children and that whole agenda and the LGBTQ plus. I don't even know all the alphabets, but when you start jumping into pulling children into your mess, it's infuriating. It's also frightening.
Yeah.
So my question again, what is the answer? Particularly because we're Christians, we're people of faith, we have the power, right? So what do we do?
The answer is redirecting our moral compass.
Us as Christians or the world?
The culture, the nation, the leadership. The answer is our moral compass, and we all know it's faith in Jesus Christ. We can say that till we're blue in the face, but I think it's an absence of a standard. It's an absence of a something to put as what to achieve. Here is the milestone. Here is what we need to achieve. We have no standard anymore. There's nothing to look to say, well, this is where we need to go and this is how we get to it. Everybody is right and everybody is wrong. There's no standard anymore. And the only way we're going to change the culture is bring back a standard.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's the thing right there, is that there's so much confusion and deceitfulness. And honestly, it's completely evil. I mean, think about the devil being, literally roaming around lying. And when you're not fulfilled, I mean, look at there's Christians that have gone astray, which is super sad. But I think the bottom line is this, that, it's easy to say, but number one, the battle belongs to God. Number two, so we don't have to fight like in a way that we shouldn't. We can pray. But I think the biggest thing is not being wavered. We have to stand on that rock, and we have to not shut up. If we start to be silenced, even when it gets hard, we lose. And I think that's the reality. Like what Michael's saying, I'd love to hear what it's like in New York, especially with where your school district is. A lot different here where I'm at right now, thankfully, at least for now. But I honestly I think the bottom line is this, is when they're saying what we're doing is hateful as Christians, they don't realize that it's actually complete opposite. We're doing it out of love. Now, if we're going over there and making fun of somebody and bullying them and telling them how much garbage they are, but if we're going over and trying to literally save somebody's life, like, listen, what you're about to do, whether it's, transition, whatever they're doing, is going to literally destroy you. And it's not going to be just on the outside, it's going to be on the inside. And there ain't no going back, at least physically. That is looking out for somebody's best interest. And that's what's so backwards these days. When you have people, actually, I don't know how people watch and listen to, even entertain The View, but the stuff that they come up with on there. And I mean, it's like they have a script. They're just ready. No matter what you say to them, it's just that one particular lady that's always on the left side of the host, of the guest. I can't think of her name right now, but I just can't. I'm watching that. I'm like, oh my gosh, everything inside of me is just boiling. I'm like, oh, I wish I was there right now. I just want to take you out. But I just that's the fleshly part of me where I can't. I'm like, you guys are just ridiculous. Watching Whoopi Goldberg, I'm like, you need to go back to Sister Act and get saved in that scene again, and then come back and start talking again. What are you doing now? Like,
but so more and more people don't think it's bogus.
I know that's what's sad is I don't really think, and you know what's funny? I just watched a little quick clip with Denzel Washington. Actually, he said a news reporter asked him about some fake news about him, and he goes, "Oh, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, right." He's like, "I remember that." He's like, "What do you do about that?" He's like, "Well," he's like, "Here's the thing." He's like, if you don't listen to the news and read, you're not informed. If you do read too much on the news, you're misinformed. They're like, okay, so what's the reality? What the reality? Well, that's a good question. The reality is that you guys, instead of just trying to be right and be first, and have to actually start talking truth.
Right. Yeah.
That's the reality. And if we're not spreading truth and we're just being opinionated, being frustrated, it's not going to help anything. What did Jesus? What does it say biblically? Literally, the truth shall set you free. If we don't stop spreading that truth, I don't think anything's going to happen.
Well, you got to stand, like you said, you have to stand on the truth, right? No matter what. Maddie or Ted, what are you thinking?
I think because of our society, they have put so much of a premium on everybody having my truth, like everybody has a subjective truth. And because we have a lack of God and an increase in truth being subjective all of a sudden, there is no compass for people to be able to judge what's right and what's wrong, because nobody has those moral standards that are based on God anymore. Because if they think that their truth can be right, they're not believing in there being a higher power to set aside what's good and bad, and they can't see that. And I believe that as Christians, from our perspective, we've been raised how to be faithful, how to love Jesus, and how to worship, and we have all the music and the children's church for everybody. But I think what Christians could do even more of is teach about intelligence, like how to be an intelligent Christian, because a lot of people my age especially, are very set on seeing facts and evidence and things to be able to prove that God exists. And as Christians, we're raised to be faithful. We know that he exists in our hearts, in our souls, but they want to see evidence. So I think it'd be important if we became a little bit more like intellectual about it. I know that there is no physical proof like there is with like regular science. It really is about faith, but until they see that, there's gonna have to be another way for us to speak to them. That's more than just, oh, we know he's true.
But we do that through being, he speaks through us.
Right.
There's a physical evidence, and it's us, and it's creation. And I think what Ken was saying, you look at the world, especially we can focus on this country because that's really all we know about. I mean, all the confusion and all the deceitfulness. I mean, who's the author of confusion? The world as we know it is going to fall away. The world is fallen. That's why we're in the predicament we're in. What do we do about it? We speak the word. We know the word is true. We know God is true. We just affect and try to imbue other people with our way of thinking, as many as we can. And we use this platform as a way to do that. People we come in contact with every day. I mean, at work, at school, in your social settings, whatever. You just you treat people the way Christ wants you to treat them, and they can pick up on that. That's evidence of God's existence.
Love, the love.
Love.
And it has to be love where you're firm. Like, for example, I don't know if you heard with Toronto Blue Jays, Anthony Bass.
Yes.
Who
you had that on your show, I believe.
Yeah, I had that on my show a couple of weeks ago when I had my pastor on, because he reshared. It wasn't even him. He reshared something from a Christian. He goes by Dude with Good News on social media. And this Dude with Good News was talking about how Christians need to boycott these places like Target that are targeting children, and this transgender drag queen, all this stuff that we need to boycott that. God says have nothing to do with those evil things. So Anthony Bass simply reshared it, or shared it, however you say that, right? He shared it. Next thing you know, he comes out, the next day, he's a Christian and he's apologizing for being insensitive, and he's now using the team's resources to learn how to better be tolerant, this whole thing. And obviously somebody took it to him, but he backed down. And I'm thinking, does that help the cause? Like, I don't know how they threatened him with his he didn't do it or say anything wrong. He didn't say it himself. And the guy who said it wasn't evil, wasn't ugly, wasn't anything like that. He just spoke the word of God. But he backed down. Does that help the cause? Does it make it better because now he appears tolerant?
That's the problem right there. Everybody's tolerating it. If you tolerate bad behavior, you're just telling the bad behavior that you can continue. Yeah. It's the same thing in a bad relationship. Someone's treating you bad, you're going to be like, I don't want to be around you anymore. That's just the reality. If we keep doing that more and more, this is exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. And that's so sad that he has to feel that way. That's the point. Is they're the fear mongers and they're the bullies, bullying us into trying to accept their way of thinking when we don't have to do that. I'm sorry. It's like your way is brand new right now. Like from 2009, 10 until this point is really how it started to amp up. Because 1980s and 90s, man, people just realized like they do their own thing. You know what I mean? Everybody knew how to take a joke. Everybody knew how to. There's a lot. Nobody was sensitive. There was no real racism. I mean, it wasn't like it is today. Like once you start to kind of throw that out there and just start getting people thinking more and more, it's like, oh, they want to tear you down. They want to do this. Who is they? Who are you talking about? Yeah. Like there might be a select few, but it isn't me. It's not Ted. It's not you. It's not Maddie. It's not Mike. I mean, that's the reality. And by the way, folks, definitely check out Maddie Flint's podcast, because what you were just talking about intelligence, and plus you just recently, you had an episode a while ago on self-love, which that I wanted to say, that's another thing. They're taking a little bit of the truth and they're spinning it. Like, you have to have self-love, and Christians buy into this. Now it sounds good. Like, yeah, you have to love yourself, but I think the root of all evil in some aspect is selfishness. If we get so wrapped up in ourselves, it's about me and how I feel. Yeah. Dude, if I got like that, man, I wouldn't be this dad anymore. I get frustrated sometimes. I get like, I don't know, my gosh, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, but we don't let our emotions dictate our lives. We have to stand up and do what is righteous, what is right, what we agreed to, what we committed to, no matter how hard it gets. And everybody's finding a way to just, if they have a chance to go out the back door and check out, that's what they're going to do, because it's easier. That crowd accepts me, so I'm going to go with them. No.
The other side, excuse me, just the other side knows, to speaking to what you were saying, to your point, I mean, the other side uses that argument to try to shut you down. They accuse you of racism or being a bully or whatever. It's just a method to keep you from speaking the truth and to shut you down. The left is great at it, and the right, for whatever reason, doesn't fight back. I mean, I see it here, especially in New York, in government here. Our side, the Republican side here in the Assembly and Senate, they're just beaten down. It's like nobody has the guts or the will to stand up and just fight these people.
And not be ugly about it. You know,
Right,
it's like
not be ugly.
it's not to say standing for truth does not mean that you're hating people or anything. The thing, particularly with the transgender situation, is that they're asking us now to participate in their delusion.
Yes.
It's one thing when you say this is what we want to do, which is bad enough because you are, you know, they said just be who you are. I think the president said that at the clown show at the White House where people were taking off their clothes and all that. But, you know, we just be who you are. It's like, well, there's something wrong with that because you're not being who you are. You're encouraging people to become something else, which they cannot do, right? And that's one thing if that's what you want to do, bad enough. But then you're asking us to participate in your delusion and to, you know, to call you what you're not. And why don't we just love people through it? Tell them who they are is good enough. That's what we do with everything else. When a kid comes to a counselor or a teacher or a parent and says, I feel like I'm not good enough, I feel like I don't measure up, we say, no, you do measure up. And anyone who thinks you don't, that's their problem. And if they need counseling, give them counseling. For some reason, when it comes to this transgender thing, we say, no, you're not good enough, let's change you. It's, Maddie, what are you going to say?
I think that sometimes, well, not sometimes, probably most of the time, but I just got done watching the Matt Walsh documentary, What is a Woman? And he interviewed some really great people on this topic exactly. And big pharma and like politics and social media and everybody's working together. And I think they said it's like 70 million or no, $70,000 or something per individual who chooses to transgender. So every time they can convince somebody that there's something wrong with them, not only is that feeding into the media and giving people a reason to vote Democrat, that's also giving big pharma a chance to make more money. And they're convincing all these kids who are at a very vulnerable age where a lot of people are very influential to them. And if they're looking up to people like that, who in the media are really advocating for transgenderism and all this stuff and making it a part of their personal character so that if we tell somebody, no, you don't need to be transgender, it's okay, you're in the right body, they're going to take that as an attack on their personal character because that's their truth. And big pharma is just laughing because they're getting all the money that they wanted.
They're laughing like Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
They're laughing. I mean, if we could see the strings, I mean, there's so much behind the scenes, even in the spiritual world, of course, but even like you said, some other stuff there. Again, I mentioned that you guys are parents and stuff, and I know that they're calling parents and people who go to school board meetings, domestic terrorists and all that. And I have to wonder sometimes, how do parents have these kids in the public school, which is hard for me because, of course, I was a teacher for nearly 20 years in New York, and it hurts me to say that. But I go, how do you, I mean, it's just absolutely off the wall. So back to my thought about what we do as Christians in some of the stuff that's going on in the culture. I want to show you this video. I want you to be mindful. This is a pastor, okay? And I want to say to those who are watching and those who are listening, if you have young children, you might want to have them leave the room, or you leave the room with your device, because it gets a little bit detailed and graphic. Okay, but again, this is a pastor speaking at a school board member, but it starts out with Jason Whitlock of the podcast Fearless with Jason Whitlock, whom I listen to regularly.
Let's refresh people's memories or give you your first take of Big John in action. Here's his latest video.
This book here, it's called It's Perfectly Normal. I'll read some of this for you. It says, after a bit, a person's becomes moist and slippery, and the clitoris becomes hard. After a bit, a person's becomes erect, stiff, and larger. Sometimes a bit of clear fluid that may contain a few sperm comes out of the tip of the and makes it wet.
Can we, sir, I'm sorry.
Was it something I said? If you don't want to hear it in a school board meeting, why should children be able to check it out of the school system? We have perverts that are perverting our kids. And you all sit back smug in your chairs, but you don't want me to read it. Why? Does it bother you? Yes or no? You can't answer that question. You want to know why? Because politically speaking, you can't say that it's wrong. And you don't want me to read the filth because it exposes the truth. How dare you tell me to stop reading it? If you don't want to hear it, why should the children have to see it?
Pastor, your time is up. Thank you.
That makes two of us.
It was excellent.
Disgusting.
Let me ask you this, though. When I say, what does it look like to be involved in the culture? Everyone who knows right from wrong, but as people of faith, especially, is that what that pastor did? Is that what it should look like and sound like?
That's his style, maybe. That wouldn't be my style. And I've spoken out at school board meetings recently on another issue, CRT issue. And now and you asked earlier about how can you have children and send them to government schools. And I do have a daughter in the public school system. We homeschooled Madeline for a time, and we homeschool our two sons. And I'm so concerned about CRT and about this DEI movement, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some of the things, as you pointed out earlier, Adrienne, that they're trying to sexualize our children. And I believe there's a war on innocence. And we are to protect our children at all costs. And that's why I'm now a part of the school board. I ran for the school board. I got elected, and they're going to seat me in July here in Cambridge, upstate New York, because I was so concerned about what's being taught in the public school system. I know, I follow this all day long, as Ken will attest. And I read continually, and just not what's happening just in New York, but around the country. And it's so disturbing, and we just have to do something.
So you're not offended by the way he handled it? Although you said you wouldn't handle it that way.
I wouldn't handle it that way, but he got his point across, and he's right. I mean, if adults don't want to hear it in a school board meeting, why should 5 and 7, 8-year-old kids hear it?
Well, Mike, what do you think?
I think more people should handle it that way. I apologize because it's so many times that people have not spoken up and we're afraid to speak it up. And it's gotten to the point where the more people are allowed and the more people come out of the woodworks to say such things, maybe we'll be heard. Because there's too many people sitting back going, somebody else is going to do it. Somebody else is going to say it. No, that man took it upon himself to say it. Was he forceful? Sure. You're going to be offended by it? Someone might be, but you know what? I'm offended that more people aren't saying something like this.
Wow. Boss man, what do you think?
Yeah, no, the reality is, I'm sure he wasn't very, I mean, it's not comfortable to read that. It's in front of people like that. I mean, you know that there's other women in there, and maybe I don't know if there's any teenagers, but there's people in there and men and women that it's uncomfortable to read that kind of stuff, because you don't know, you can't always read the room. You don't know who's comfortable with that type of talk. So for someone like him to go in there and confidently say it, again, I'm sure that's not how he talked in his home. I know he's a pastor, I'm going to assume, and I'm sure he doesn't read that type of material. He understands he's an old man. I mean, he's a man who's married, etc. But the reality is, though, is for him and his wife and him having conversations with his children, he wouldn't even talk to his own children like that. That's the point he was making, as he would talk to them about things in a very childlike manner that's appropriate. But that was the whole point. This is inappropriate for our kids. It has no place in the school, no teacher, no anybody. Like he said, there's perverts. And our children should not be susceptible to that type of the literature. And there's way more than that, because I've seen that. I hadn't seen that one. I've seen another one with him, because he goes to these a lot, it seems like. Yeah. And there's a couple other ones that do that too. And I've watched them, and in the books that they talk about and what they read out of that, I'm like, I cannot believe that. Actually, one was near you guys. I think it was in Mahonison. A guy actually went and spoke at a school board meeting, and it went viral as well. And he went in there, very respectful pastor. He said, listen, and he started bringing up these books. He's like, what I'm saying to you guys is that it just takes one, money hungry lawyer to kind of pick up on something, to do something. He's like, because all of you here are allowing this in our schools. And he brought it up that in the law, that according to the law, and in their website too, according to the law, that children are not allowed to be exploited. And it starts to go into this whole, and there's already these little fine lines to that too, where this type of thing is not actually, he went the legal route. He's like, so I'm asking you to remove these books, because I'd rather have the money go towards the kids and education, not towards a lawsuit. So please take this route. So he went an interesting route too. So I think more people, like Mike said, like Ted said too, everybody's got their own style. But more people need to stand up and say, this is not appropriate for our children, because that guy, obviously, maybe his kids don't even go to that school, but he's speaking for other kids. He's doing it for their benefit.
I'm sorry. I think I just recently, in relation to this video, I recently shared that video with somebody I know. And I think you'd be amazed to find out how many people actually believe and think that it's acceptable, even people that we know, that it's acceptable for kids to be able to check out this literature. Because I actually had this exact conversation with someone who was very close to me. And I said, what do you think of this? I think it's deplorable. It's disgusting, and I shared the video, and their actual retort to me was, well, their kids are inquisitive and people want to know, why isn't it acceptable for them to get the facts at an age that they're starting to learn to explore, and they want to know, why can't they get the details? My argument is, why has it got to be so graphic? I mean, we can keep it, can't we keep it age appropriate? But you'd be impressed to find out how many people think it's okay for them to have it fed to them, just like that book says.
Yeah. Maddie, why is this going on? I mean, Mike just said some people think that this is appropriate, and that's, I guess, more and more people are deceived, but I believe there's got to be some kind of agenda.
Yeah, 100%, especially in schools. And I think that's their easiest target right now, because kids are very inquisitive and they want to know what's going on. So if they're listening to their educators and their peers and they feel as though those people can't tell them anything that could hurt them, they're going to be more and more curious. And at schools, there are some teachers that are, I don't know if they're like millennial aged or whatever, but I've seen a lot of videos of where the first things that they do in the classroom are have everybody talk about their pronouns. You give their name, the pronouns, and the teacher. There were a couple of cases, I can't remember the specific one, but around the country where a teacher got really mad that a student misgendered them. And I don't even know what their gender was, but they're putting a huge amount of focus on transgenderism and just everything in the LGBTQIA movement. I don't even know, but they're convincing so many of these kids that they need to know about it. So they just keep asking for more.
Yeah. You guys realize that they're normalizing. They want to normalize all this stuff. I did an episode, I don't know, 4 weeks ago now, where I had another school board member in New York, my good friend Kia Walker. And we talked about the guidance issued by the World Health Organization and the UN wanting to push that as well for 2023. I guess it's already going on. I know it's already going on in Europe, but they want it in all the United Nations countries. And it's sexualizing children starting at birth. And they actually have a guidance. Right now, it's on pause as far as the UN, I guess, because there's been some pushback. But the plan is that at birth, we will begin to, there's a whole agenda. It's watch the podcast or listen to it if you haven't. It has a link there where you can go check it out. It has ages, 0 to 4. This is what you learn, 5 to this is what you're doing. And it's all about masturbation. It's all about having sex you're supposed to, I guess by the time you're 12, I think the guidance says, and this is being pushed in schools. It specifically wants this stuff to come out of the hands of the parents and into the hands of educators. And it's a whole thing. And no doubt, at this part of this agenda is to normalize pedophilia. Mm-hmm. And when I had this conversation with Kia, she said, I'm like, why? And she said, you have to understand that there are many countries where sex with children is the norm. That's just what they do. And there's an agenda to bring that to the United Nations. It's sickening, but I'm saying we better figure out something, because if we don't, it's going to be all over the place. So let me ask you this. Notice that pastor, the man said to the pastor, as he tried to shut him down at the meeting, he said, your time is up. Mm-hmm. And the pastor said, that makes both of us. Right. Here's my question. Do you believe, as we wrap up, because I don't want to keep you too much longer, but as we wrap up, I got to ask you, is that pastor right when he says that makes two of us? Is the time up really? Or is it just wishful thinking?
How did he mean it, I wonder, though? Whose time is up? I mean, that the left and what they're trying to push, their time is up?
What do you guys think? That's what I read it. When he said your time is up, he said that makes two of us. And I think that he's saying that we're gonna put the kibosh on this.
That's right. It's war. We're in a war. It's a spiritual war, obviously, in Ephesians 6:12. But I think that the war manifests itself in many physical areas, and this is one of them. This war to sexualize our children. You said, I didn't know, is the UN is pushing this and the World Health Organization?
World Health Organization and UN as well. Yeah, they issued this, and
This is why
you have to go look the links because it gives you detail age by age of how they're doing this. Multiple sex partners, same sex relationships, masturbate. I mean, they want them to do. It's pushed and it has to be taught, and it's already being done. And they want to bring it here. Right now, there's a pause.
Schools?
I think it's
2030. Did I say? I said by 2030. Yes, schools. I don't know if I said 2023. I don't know if I misspoke. But 2030. That's the plan. And it's going. They want it in school. Obviously, it starts at birth, so it's got to be some done at home. But they want to take this away from parenting and bring it into the schools. And it's already. It said all but required in Europe already. But the United Nations wants it throughout for all the UN nations. To read it is just disgusting. It's so specific. When we had a regional prayer gathering, as we do every other month in my church, my pastor had me come up after that podcast and tell the people, but he said, there are children in the room. So I was trying, and I couldn't even find the words. I'm a wordsmith of a sort. I couldn't find the words to even try to explain it in a different way.
When I heard your time is up, my mind immediately went to a scripture in Revelation where the word says that the devil knows his time is short. And we're at a time where this is going to peak, and it's going to get, it's like the bowl, it's about to overflow. So, for a long time, the attacks were trickling in. And for a long time, we were slowly losing rights. For a long time, we were slowly turning away from moral focus and a moral principle, and turning away from scripture. Now it's coming on with an onslaught, and it's just going to overflow. And as the devil knows his time is short, it's going to get worse because he's going to throw everything he has at it. And I look at it this way. There's two ways we could look at it. We could tuck our tails and be upset and go, oh crap, there's nothing we're gonna be able to do about it. Or we just say, hey, it was written that this was gonna happen. And in the end, we rejoice because we know his time is short. And we know, because we're seeing all this happen and play out in front of us, that we know it's not long until we see our victory. We've already have our victory. But it's not long until we see our victory, because he's going to throw everything out of it. It's all going to fall apart. And ultimately, God is going to have his way in the end. Yes. And he looked at it in the way he was saying it to that board. Your time is up. And you know what? Throw everything you want at it, because in the end, I really believe that everybody's going to have the wool pulled right across over their eyes. The curtain's going to be torn and ripped out, and everybody's going to be exposed for who they are. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it's not all gloom and doom. There is hope, right? If there were no hope, we would just go hide in a corner somewhere and never come out. But there is hope, and we do win. And so I want to make sure that we don't just end with gloom and doom, but I also want to make sure that people understand, people who do have their heads buried in the sand, because believe it or not, there are people who feel like, oh, you're just making too much of this. Oh, it's not that bad. And we have to speak the truth. And the truth is kind of gloomy. But Ken, as we wrap up, there is hope, right? So once again, Kenny, tell us, reiterate even what Mike said in your own words. Where is our hope, and how do we continue to stand?
Yeah, number one, our hope is in Jesus Christ. Number two, I think if we can, again, in this world, it's easy to look around and see all that's happening around us and get frustrated, obviously. But we have to have the perspective of Christ. We have to see through his eyes. Remember, he endured the cross and he did it with joy set before him. And if we can see people as the creation of God, it will really help us when we're speaking the truth, not hate them for what they're doing, but hate their actions and love them enough to, even when they're bad mouthing us. Jesus did the same thing. He sat there with sinners and they took him down. They crucified him, but he did it still with joy in his step. And he did it with love, because he knew that what they're going to bow their knee, and hopefully it's going to be where they're accepting him. And that's the point. We're going to do it because we know it's for their sake. We are going to carry our cross, and we are going to do this because we love them that much, because of the love of Christ that's inside of us. I think that's it. And I do want to say, not doom and gloom, but just again, not to keep talking, but I highly recommend everybody too. I wanted to put this in there. Do check out, obviously, continually. If you're out watching this podcast with Adrienne Ross, go check out her other 99 episodes, please. The Essentials with Maddie Flitt. Be sure to check them out. I'm telling you, she talked about being more intellectual. You're going to hear from somebody who is intellectual, and you're going to get inspired. Ted Flint, I'm telling you, he is always on. He's been doing this. You heard him in the beginning of this podcast for 30 something years.
Yeah.
He's not just a voice. He's got a fantastic radio voice, but the reality is he knows where to look and how to understand and decipher truth from fiction and what facts are. Mike too, when he gets his butt back in here with us, the guy.
And I want him to do that.
Wait. 1 second. Let me interrupt for a second, and you can edit this all out later, and not to steal any of Adrienne's fire here. But Kenny, I'm going to put you on the spot now. When are we doing the Ken and Mike show again?
So I was just going to say, you
come on now, come on.
Yeah,
like Holy Spirit.
Now, so I think the reality is we
are not editing this out. We want this on the record.
No, listen, I know. Look, every time I talk to somebody, I know there's some faithful listeners that are always waiting for that Ken and Mike show to pop back up again, and I think the time is now. I think we got to do things, and there's a lot of great ideas that you and I and all of us have that we can do things in a way that'll really help that get going, and I really do. And Mike, you had a podcast there for a little while too. And there's other people that are there. I can't think of them right now, but I'm thinking of other people. But the reality is though, is check them all out. You can check all of our podcasts out there on the bmgnetwork.com. One thing that you said though earlier, I wanted to let you know, you mentioned that trickling down from everywhere. There's a podcast I did a while ago. I don't remember the episode, but it was called Ideological Subversion and Demoralization. I'm sure you guys have heard of that type thing. And it came from, oh, goodness gracious. What is it called? What are the Russian people back in the day? They were the secret society, essentially. Yeah. They're the little organization. Huh? Yeah. There was something like that where they plan an idea. And then what they do is there's steps to it. I kind of in that podcast.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
And each one, and it takes lots of time. But that's the whole point. It's like 10 years go by, what step one's done, another 10, whatever time. And then the last step, you mentioned it, Adrienne, is normalization. And that's exactly what they try to do. They plan an idea, they get it to where it's normalized. And
you know something, Ken?
Yeah.
I don't want before I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll forget it because it'll go out of my head. But there was a book written, I think, in the late 40s or early 50s called The Naked Communist. And I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to. It speaks to everything you just said about how the left is they're patient. They plan to see that it'll be decades. They won't see the fruits of their labor. They'll be long gone before they, what they're living their entire lives for is, I think, the destruction of our country and our morals. They're trying to just destroy us utterly. And they have patience, and they don't quit. And we need that to quit too. We need to stay.
Can I say that somebody on the right really needs to covertly join the left camp and learn their battle plan, because they plan and they fight really well. And us Republicans are really good at just backing down and just taking the whoop.
Yeah. We're not allowed to say the word fight. If you say the word fight,
Michael Knowles calls them squishes. Right.
So I will just say this: call evil what is evil.
Fight really
call good what is good. Let's start there, and then also again, do it out of love. Love these people, but love hurts. sometimes.
Yes,
That's
it
the
does.
point.
It does. That's
feeling.
so good. Thank you so much. I want to just have Ted and Maddie again tell us what your podcast is and your writing, if you do writing, where people can find you, because I know that there are going to be people who are going to want to tune in more and more and then share with others. So tell us.
Okay, I do the Pac-Man podcast once a week, at least once a week, sometimes twice. It's PAC stands for Patriotic American Citizen. And we talk about on the program politics mainly, but the culture, my cultural observations on the culture, on the political world, state, federal, and maybe international at times, and some local. And I write a column on occasion called The PAC Perspective. And again, focusing on politics, what Congress is up to, what the state legislature is up to, and some of my cultural observations. And that's used to be weekly, but maybe not weekly, but when the spirit moves me.
Yes. And that's the BMG Network also and podcast platforms?
The BMG Network and the podcast platforms, yes.
Excellent. Yes. All right, Maddie, where can we find you?
You can also find me on the BMG Network, also on Spotify and YouTube. And my Instagram handle is at MaddieZ_glowing. So Maddie's glowing on Instagram. And my podcast is an educational podcast. It talks about advice, politics, American culture, Christianity, and the media with a scientific spin on it, because the human bio major, I can't just let this stuff go to waste. I love talking about it. And why not give people something truthful that they can take with them and through their everyday lives?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Ken and Mike, I want to say this. Even if you came back with 10 minutes of truth, and then go from there, it's worth it. You guys have a voice, and we need you back out there. Obviously, you're doing work, you're doing a lot, you're raising kids, you're working, you're contributing to society, and Ken, you're running the BMG Network. But 10 minutes of you two together, I love the Ken and Mike show, so we love to have that back. Guys, thank you all for being a part of this 100th episode. 100, reunion, right? A reunion, right. What better time, like I said, to do this. This is very special. And I want to say again to you, Kenny, that I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have one episode, much less 100, had it not been for you offering me this platform and doing the hard work behind the scenes. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's absolutely my pleasure. It honestly is.
All right. And guys, continue the good work. You will reap if you faint not, because you're sowing. All right. All right. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this episode. God bless you abundantly.
Bless you too.
Thank you.
I really, really enjoyed this 100th episode of the Adrienne Ross Show with the BMG Network team. I really appreciate every one of them and what they do to stand for truth, to speak truth, to not waver. And I really appreciate Kenny Burns for the Burns Media Group, the BMG Network. And he affords us this platform to be able to bring truth to you. We're in the trenches. We're in the trenches, and we would appreciate your support. Make sure you go to the BMGnetwork.com. Check out the BMG Network on Facebook also. And of course, I'm going to invite you to check out Adrienne Ross on Substack, and that's adrienneross.substack.com. I need your support, adrienneross.substack.com, so you can go there and subscribe. There are various subscription options, and I encourage you to jump into one of them. There is even a free subscription. You get occasional posts, occasional content with the free subscription. But if you would choose one of the paid subscriptions, I'd really appreciate it. It will help me to continue to do what I do. It will help me to be able to fulfill the vision that I have, because I do have a vision. And so you could become a paid subscriber and get regular premium, the best of the best content. That's adrienneross.substack.com. Also, check out the Adrienne Ross Show on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, share, all that. All right. But if you go to Substack, it's an all-in-one platform, so you can go and check that out. And we're also on the major podcast platforms. All right. So thank you for tuning in. And again, go to the bmgnetwork.com. We are engaging, enlightening. We are all so informative, and we are also entertaining. All right. I will catch you next time on the Adrienne Ross Show. Thank you for helping me celebrate this 100th episode. And before I go, I'm going to reach over here because I don't want this to end without allowing you to see me take a little bit of this cheesecake. This is me celebrating 100 episodes of the Adrienne Ross Show. I could have quit. I didn't. I've done episode after episode after episode. The only time I was out of pocket was for 6 to 8 weeks, I think, when I had brain surgery. And I think, you got to forgive me for that, right? Brain surgery after all. But God is good. So 100 episodes, cheesecake. I'm celebrating. So good. All right. Here's to 100 more. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you abundantly.